Hi everyone, thanks for coming back for the next video. I think we're now 4 videos in, and hopefully I'm still holding your attention and hopefully still finding it interesting. I'll try and make up some interesting stories in this one. This time I want to talk to you about Down Days. So it was my first non-fiction book. Now this only came out November before last, so it's just a little bit over a year old. And it was never really a book that anybody was supposed to read. It was purely therapeutic for myself, which makes it an odd one. And it was a completely new experience, but I'll start from the beginning. So, about 5 or 6 years ago, I had a huge nervous breakdown. I was depressed, I was suffering from anxiety, and it kind of broke me all the way down. And whenever I'm feeling that way, I've learned to use my writing, which is my only thing I can really, really rely on wanting to do when I feel so low. And so I rely on it to kind of keep me going. I tend to write a lot of poetry, very angsty, emo kind of poetry when I'm feeling depressed. And because this one was a particularly difficult time, as I say, it was the lowest I'd ever been and the most ill I'd ever been. I started to write mostly as a diary, kind of getting thoughts and feelings down, getting emotions down. And it was before I'd had any therapy or had access to counselling or anything like that, because you have to wait for these things, and I wasn't really in the right headspace. Anyway, so I started to write, and it wasn't quite an everyday thing. It was kind of whenever I could will myself to do it. But because I never thought anybody was going to read it, it was just for me. Um, it was very conversational. It was just me kind of talking to myself, and it was it was completely raw. I didn't try to hide anything because I wasn't hiding anything from myself. And long story short, or long story long, is by the time I had gone through the process of seeing doctors and having therapy and counselling, getting on medication and kind of pulling myself around and starting to feel a lot more human again, um, I had something that looked a lot like a book left. And that kind of seems like it should be the end. Oh, great, book published. But actually, there was a whole middle section where I wasn't really sure what to do about it. So I started to post it on a blog, taking it a chapter at a time, and kind of writing updates as well. So I released it for free as a PDF, the whole book as a chunk, and then I continued to write as I was kind of developing my understanding of my depression and my mental health, and trying to help other people to realize that they weren't on their own. The blog went on for quite some time. I think it went on for another year or so. And as with, if you guys have seen the first video about my short stories, as with this one and my first short story, it was my wife Laura who actually compelled me to share it with somebody else. I decided to let her read it, mostly because sometimes it's particularly difficult to talk about your mental health and your depression and anxiety and explain it to someone in a way that makes sense. But for some reason, when I'm typing, I can make it make sense, or a little more at least. And because I was struggling to convey what I was feeling to her, I thought I'm just going to let her read it because maybe she'll be able to figure it out from there. Hopefully, if I've done my job right. And she thought it was really useful, and quite emotional, obviously, because it's a high emotional situation. And so she said that I should share it. So that was why I got to the point of sharing the PDF on the blog and then continuing to write, kind of, as I say, mostly for my own therapy. And maybe for a year, I carried on doing that. And it was the most petrifying experience because while ever I've shared other stories, other novels, it was always about the other characters. It was never about me. And this was very much about me. It was extremely personal. Um, no, it was a point where I'd left my long term career, mostly through depression and anxiety. My mental health couldn't handle being a nurse anymore. Um, and it kind of broke me all the way down, as I say. But incredibly, I had the most amazing feedback. Um, People were reading it from all over the world. All of a sudden, I was getting messages from America and Australia and Europe, mainland, obviously. Um, let's not talk about Brexit. But I was getting messages from all over the world saying that people had read it and that it had been really useful, and that they'd enjoyed it, and that they'd passed it on to loved ones because they didn't know how to express it either. So they'd passed it on, so that people who don't live with mental health issues and depression, anxiety can figure out what it feels like. And that is probably the best feeling I've ever had in my entire writing career. Getting my first short story published, getting my first book published, they were nothing, absolutely nothing compared to sharing this story that was so personal with people, and then getting the fact that I'd helped, um, especially in a time when I kind of defined myself by helping other people, obviously being a nurse, and it was a huge part of my personality, and I felt like I'd lost that by not being a nurse anymore. And and so I realised that maybe I could still help and still do some good. So the blog continued. Unfortunately, because I am a poor nobody, not even Z list. I think I'm probably into the wingdings kind of stage of being an author. Um, I was broke because I didn't have a job, and my depression had led to me being unemployed at the time. So the blog basically died because I couldn't afford to keep it up and running. My savings were running out. I had no wages coming in, and that was me really. So I actually posted saying, "I'm really sorry, everyone, but I'm going to have to give it up. I can't keep it running. I'm going to leave it here, but I can't keep the upkeep." Um, and again, I had so many offers of people either helping me to run the blog, to pay for it every month, which is insane. Um, and in the end, my publisher, Inspired Quill, who don't normally do non-fiction, actually said, "Are you nuts? We'll publish it," which was absolutely incredible. Um, and so I think the blog is still there. I think you will probably still get this book for free if you absolutely need it and you really need to read it and talk to someone. I believe it is still there for free. But we have published it. And this is the very nice cover. If I can tilt it in the light so that you can see that. And yeah, it's a book that I still kind of struggle to talk about a little bit. As I say, because it is very personal, it's very raw. And although I feel much better now, and I'm getting much better at managing my mental health and my depression, because it hasn't gone away. It doesn't go away. I'm still living with it every day. But although I'm getting better at managing it, this stage was there was some dark times, folks. It was some real dark times. But talking about what I've learned, this is one of those moments where I realised that the world isn't as absolutely catastrophically crap as I thought it was. Because out there are people, there is actual humanity out there beyond the politicians. Look past the politicians, and look past these horrific people who just gather fame without skill or talent or anything, just for the sake of having money. That whole capitalist Kardashian crap. And I normally swear a lot, so doing these videos, I'm trying quite hard not to. Yeah, if you look past all that, there are just normal people out there, normal people in every single country in the world, and they're all feeling exactly the same as you. And I think I really needed that. I really needed that pat on the back. I really needed to know that there was that almost global support for other people who were suffering with mental health issues. Um, I know that sounds like really highfalutin, but if you want to get philosophical about it, everybody in the world is exactly the same, and the point of humanity is that we care about each other. And sharing down days, it really showed me that. This was one of the longest processes I think I've ever had, getting a book from writing to actually down and in a hard copy print. It must have been like 5 or 6 years from me kind of having my breakdown and doing the writing through all the process of the blog and things. But it has been one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. Um, I don't do talks about down days, and I don't do readings. And there's a very good reason for that, and it's because when I read this, I well up and I can't get through it. So if I had to do that in front of people, it would be an absolute catastrophe. So if anybody wants to know anything more about down days or wants me to do a reading, I can possibly try to do a video and just edit out all the parts where I have to kind of get up and walk around and have a cup of tea and have a break and then come back and start reading again. I can try and do that, or obviously you can check out the link below and you can go grab yourself a copy. But yes, this is going to be a short video about down days because although I've learned so much, it's a raw subject. So thank you so much for coming and watching the Down Days one. I know that was a little bit weird, and hopefully the next one will be a little bit more upbeat. I'm going on to another novella that I decided to release in between the Alan Shaw 2 and finally getting my finger out and writing Alan Shaw 3, which is Emmy. And so we'll move on to that one. Check out the next video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in a minute. Hi everyone, just a quick PS. Just wanted to remind you that there's a giveaway for my Authorversary, and you can enter by going into the comments box below and entering details. You can also find my books down there, and you can find my Patreon if you want to keep abreast of what's going on and see videos like this early and get access to books early and short stories and exclusive poetry and things like that. So please do check it out. Thanks a lot. See you soon.